Hello, everyone. It's great to have you all here. And I want to say thank you for being a part of this session. And emancipation tomorrow is August 1st, but we're on a Sunday. We decided to do this event on today, the July 31st. Before we go further, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Sharon Nelson. I'm a member of the Jamaica Association. And today, hosting with me will be Cynthia Waite, who is the president of Barbados House, Montreal Association. And we also will have Sharon Baptiste of the Grenada Nationals Association of Montreal, who will be coming in, and other members of the coalition. I believe Liebert Sanko will be also saying a few words, and members of the coalition, Mark Henry, will be saying a few words.
Place two for stuff, for house, that one there.
Hold on, let's mute Krista. And so I want to say thank you so much for coming out today. And I'd like to now turn over the floor to Cynthia Waite to give a welcome.
Thank you, Sharon. And thank you all for taking the time out this Sunday afternoon to join us to talk about rum and emancipation. So it's going to be an action-packed event. You're going to be hearing a lot about what the different countries, Caribbean countries, held in importance of rum in their countries. And it's really going to be something educational. It's going to be funny because I know that we're going to be sharing a lot of funny jokes about rum in each of our respective countries. So just take a listen, sit back and relax. If you have a glass of rum, I think now will be the time to have it while you're sharing this session with us. We won't judge you or anything like that, so feel free. Oh, there's Liebert. He's ready. Liebert's ready. There you go. I can always count on Liebert.
Anybody want if you want to come over, it's all right.
Yes.
Cynthia and Sharon, as tradition and practice of Caribbean people, we always open a session with a prayer. So don't let it deviate from that. Let's keep the culture and keep the practice that let's open with a prayer. Regardless of
Nigel, I will definitely turn it over to you to open with prayer.
With pleasure, because I believe it's proper and the right thing to do. Let us pray. Father, we come before you to ask you for your blessing, your guidance, and your understanding as we gather to reflect on the past and look forward to the future and the present. We know how important it is for us to celebrate this occasion. It might be a part of our bad memory and our past, but let us be mindful that we are going forward, and the blessing that you preserve, that you give to us of the Caribbean people, these and thy mercy we ask in your name. Amen.
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 All the women too.
Amen.
Yeah, a women.
So thank you, Nigel. So with that said, I know we're starting a little bit late, so we're gonna try to catch up so we can get everybody out in time. So with that said, Sharon, I'll turn it over to you to bring up the presentation so we can kick it off.
Thank you. And I got a message from Manda around turning off our videos, but we don't like to do that in the coalition. We like to have people participate. If you're definitely turn off the mics if people are not speaking at the time or there's more than one, but with video, we always like to see who's in the meeting and to get some reaction. So that's wonderful. Thank you though for that. But with the audio, definitely, I certainly agree that turning off the audio is important. So yes, we will be able, so we also have a question about replay, and this is why we do record it so that we can share it far and wide. So with this, I want to say thank you, Cynthia, for that introduction and for everyone for being here. And now the pièce de résistance is talking about rum in the Caribbean and its history, long history in the Caribbean and other parts of the world. But what I'd like to first share with you is about the coalition. Let's go to the next slide. I want to say welcome. So the Caribbean Coalition Network of Montreal is made up of 7 nations, Caribbean nations here, and we can see our flags represented. So we have Guyana, Grenada, Antigua and Barbuda, Barbados, Dominica. This country's name has changed somewhat with the new election, Petite Martinique, Carriacou, and Grenada. We have St. Vincent and the Grenadines and Jamaica. These are the nations that make up the Caribbean Coalition Network of Montreal. If you've heard about our activities, this is who we are. But the flags are one thing, and these are the people that make up the Caribbean Coalition. And we're 14 that meet, mostly 14 that meet every 6 weeks to talk about activities that we are going to be doing or like to do. And you can see here are the presidents of the different organizations are highlighted, but there are 7 presidents, and then there are 7 others who are part of this coalition that meet regularly. I think it's always nice to put a name to a face. So Julene Barrington is the president of the Antigua and Barbuda Association. Ketlin Maitland-Blades is the president of Dominica Island Cultural Association. Cynthia Waith is the president of the Barbados House Montreal Association. Nicole Swan is the president of the Grenada Nationals Association of Montreal. Liebert Sanko is the president of the Guyana Cultural Association of Montreal. Mark Henry is the president of the Jamaica Association of Montreal, and Alfred Jack Deere. We know him mainly as Jack, but his right name is Alfred. So Alfred Jack Deere is president of the St. Vincent and the Grenadines Association of Montreal. And over these many months, we have also come up with, we've been meeting since 2019. And I think it was about 2 meetings ago, we decided that we should have a representative logo that talks about the this coalition network. And so I want to say thank you to the designer who created this logo. From was a connection to the Grenada Nationals Association, someone that Nicole Swan knows. And we all agreed on this, that this logo represents us. So about us, the aim of the coalition is really to strengthen the bonds amongst different island organizations and to have that stronger voice, to create opportunities and to share knowledge and offer support for sure. And we thought this logo encompasses the nations that are part of the logo. You know, the sun, the sea, the sand, the coconut, the rum in the coconut, in the coconut. Let's just put it that way. It's right there, and there's a straw as well. So we thought of everything. And last but not least, we wanted not to put any flags on the logo because we were thinking of growth as well. So as Cynthia talked about, this is going to be a very interactive session. So we're going to start talking about, the agenda is really about talking about the history of rum. And please feel free to interject or raise if you have a question, definitely put up your hand or raise your virtual hand. And we're going to talk about the rums, the history of the rums, and the rums from the various nations that are part of the Caribbean Coalition. But we also want to hear about your rum, the uses of rum. So yeah, we drink it in cocktails and all that, but we do other things with rum in the Caribbean. So we have a list, but we want to hear your list as well, right? It's not limited to what was on the spreadsheet. And also stories. So I've heard a story about a cadaver and rum, if we can start that off, and many other stories about rum. So I know that William Critchlow is on the line, and I'm going to invite him to share a story about high wine, because that was hilarious. So all those different stories about rum, and we're going to keep it interactive. So here we go. Any questions so far?
No.
No? Good?
I think we're doing really good, and I have one personal story I can share.
Perfect.
About rum, yes. Perfect.
It's a lot to learn. Rum is a really interesting story. So the origins of rum. It starts off with slavery and sugarcane production. So sugarcane was harvested, and so like Guyana and Grenada, Antigua, St. Vincent, Dominica, please don't get upset, because a lot of the research that was found encompasses Barbados and Jamaica. And, you know, I'm Jamaican, Cynthia's from Barbados. No, we didn't work this out like that. But the research tells us this. And
but we know that every single country has some great rum.
Absolutely.
So, yes.
Absolutely. But the origins, some research tells us it's 1620. Others tell us it's 1640s that they saw the English distilling rum in Barbados. So Barbados has the honor of being known as the first place where rum has been created, right? So here we go, 1640. And what they learned was that it was very profitable, and then it expanded across the Caribbean and into North and South America. And it was initially ex-convicts that were making rum and prisoners from the British Isles, but probably didn't have enough of those people. So they switched to the Africans. There were a lot more Africans on the continent. So this is where Black people became enslaved and brought to America and the Caribbean to start this rum production. Hundreds of thousands of people lost their lives. I mean, it didn't matter that you were a child, it didn't matter that you were male or female. What was important was the production of sugar. And that's history as it is. So young men in their late teens, young men and women in their late teens, as long as they were strong enough, they got to join what they called the first gang. That was excruciating work. They were there for maybe 10 to 12 years, and they couldn't take it anymore. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that kind of work was. And so once they left that first gang, you know, backbreaking, disgusting work, let's put it that way, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, what that was, then we're relegated to the second gang that worked hard, but not as hard as those in the first gang. And they were relegated to more harvesting in the second gang and all that. So maybe after 20 years or so in the second gang, they were relegated to the third gang that was made up of people over 40 and children. And so that was the grass gang, and they were mandated to weed, because in the Caribbean, there's a lot of weeds that grow. You have to keep you can't stifle the sugar cane from growth. So the kids and the older folks were relegated to clearing the land and other things that we'll talk about. But the owners knew that this was really bad, like backbreaking work. Nonetheless, they had forced labor. They had the tools of forced labor as well, which were whips that were used to keep people in line and to keep people afraid and keep people doing the job. So here is kind of like the makeup. As we said, the first, second, and third gang. That first gang, as I mentioned, was made up of people in their late teens, male and female, and they were preparing the land for harvest, turning the soil. They also, in late summer, early autumn, they planted the cane, and that was with a system they call cane holing. Those holes were about 4 by 6 feet in size, and they were expected to make up to 60 to 100 holes per day. Now imagine that. And there's a small picture here that you can see. I have a bigger picture coming up in the next slide. But that cane holing was hard work. You had to till that soil. And actually this picture is coming out of not Barbados, but Antigua. So not only was it hard work because you had to move the soil, it was disgusting. It was disgusting because they had to use manure, and up to 2 tons of manure, carrying 2 tons of manure, because that was fertilizer. That's what they had at the time. They used bill hooks to cut the cane at harvest. And during the boiling process, that was 24/7 during February to April, that was even harder than the harvesting part of the work. Now, it is said that on some plantations, you will find, you could have found men, particularly men, that had, you know, no hand or no arm, because so you have one-armed men or men with no hand, because in the process of boiling, putting the sugarcane in the machines, it was a 24-hour process. So those in the first and second gang were working 12-hour shifts. So you can imagine, so nowadays we work 8 hours, and after the 8 hours were pooped, and many of us are working in, kind of white collar jobs. This is, heavy labor job. You get tired, your hand gets, caught in a mill, and there's no stopping that process. Your hand's coming off because the mill's not stopping, right? So that was really terrible stuff. Now look at the number. 1 gallon of cane juice would produce 1 pound of muscovado sugar. Like how much did you, what's the production, right? You didn't get numbers in terms of production, but in terms of just having it, getting the sugar and getting the cane juice, how much cane did you need? Keep in mind that the slaves had to really, or enslaved people had to really work fast because they couldn't keep the cane for a long time, otherwise the juice will dry out. So this was continuous process. In that second gang, again, people in their late 20s, preparing the soil, using the bill hooks at harvest, and one of their main tasks was to tie up the cane and put them on wagons, and also to work in those processing, in the boiling process. Again, February to April, 24-hour shift thing. That third gang that we talked about earlier, of the children and over 40-year-olds, did the weeding of the crops, but one of their other tasks was to catch rats, and the owners would give rewards. They didn't say what kind of reward they would get, but they would give rewards for the most rats caught. Now, if you ever saw a rat, I mean, I would jump up on a chair. I was like, I'm not, And if there are rats like in New York, my aunt once said they're rats big as cats, this was not cool work to be catching rats and catching as many as possible. And what reward were they getting in this otherwise brutal and atrocious condition that these people were living in?
It's amazing that just hearing about this, that something that we enjoy so much has such a history tied to emancipation. It's astonishing and just simply shocking to me.
It is. Mm-hmm. It is. So I wanted to bring up this picture here of we wanted to bring up this picture of this, what cane holding looked like, and the painter, the artist, one of the things the author talked about was, when painting this, these scenes, they wanted it to look like it was pleasant, it was good, it was nice. Slavery wasn't all that bad, so it doesn't look like there's no whips in the image. It looks like people are, working well together. Everything is, but imagine doing this type of work in the type of soil that they do have. This is a bill hook. So imagine working in close proximity to others. How many other slaves or enslaved people were injured by this type of instrument, right? And having to work fast, having to go fast, having to reap the harvest, and but using something as solid as a machete, essentially. But how many other slaves that we don't know about were maimed, killed, or otherwise with an instrument such as this? So this information comes out of Jamaica, where we know that that the slave owners knew that this was really backbreaking work and that people would die young. So each year you would have hundreds of thousands of enslaved Africans being shipped to the colonies to replace those who died because of the type of work that they were forced to do. They were mandated to do. So in Barbados, we hear about Edward Littleton, who owned about 100 slaves, and employ them in growing the sugarcane, and he knew that it would kill them in about 19 years, right? It required thousands of people. So this census in Jamaica between 1748 and 1788, this is all before emancipation, indicates that over 335,000 enslaved Africans were brought to Jamaica. And that was Britain's largest producing colony. And as I would say today, it's one of the largest producing rum countries, right? So in that 1788 census, it records only 226,000, just over 226,000 enslaved men, women, and children. So how many, and the turnover of people, of babies and children that were born, only 226,000 when over 300,000 were brought to the island. So you can imagine the type of work that, and the devastation that it had on people for the production of sugar. Nigel, I think, do you want to say something?
Yes, I just wanted to clarify the reasons to catch the rats. And the rats was to destroy the sugarcane from the roots. And because we experienced in Barbados a lot, that when you go, had to examine the sugarcane before they load them on the truck, because the rats actually destroy the sugarcane. So that was one reason to try to catch as much rats as possible.
Absolutely, absolutely. That is very true. So, in another an article called "Decolonizing the Rum Industry," I mean, we know that when we look at the history of rums in the various Caribbean islands, the white planters are the ones who started this, right? But today in 1834, there was no EDI, equity, diversity, and inclusion. Today, there is such a thing. In 2022, there is such a thing. However, we're still not seeing the kind of involvement of Black people in the rum industry and the production, although they are owners, if you will, or those that are making the necessary high-level decisions when it comes to rum. In the various countries, there are. If you take a look at St. Vincent, you have the Greaves family. We have others, but they may be born St. Vincent, but they're not melanated people, if we can say that.
Yes.
If when we look at the census here, slavery in Barbados officially lasted until the 1833 Act abolishing slavery, and that took effect in 1834. But the people that were there at that time had to continue to work, just like we saw in America. They continued to work for their owners for a number of years after slavery had ended. Oops, I'm sorry. There's one last thing I need to say here. And this is really important. We talk about reparations. So in 1833, as part of that act, slave owners of British in the colonies were given over what in today's dollars is 3.4 billion. In 2021 dollars, 3.4 billion to compensate for the losses. But we have not seen that for descendants of slaves or enslaved people. Any questions?
Well, just to hold that thought, we know that some legislation in Barbados now is being proposed to get that back to the Bajan people, the same money that they put into the plantation and the sugar. Now they're trying to see if they can get it back to give back to some of the Barbadian people. So that's something that is being discussed now as a part of the new policy for the Montreal government.
Well, that's good to hear. Good to know. Good to know. There's some recognition. Go ahead.
Oh, yes. I was gonna say, does anybody have any feedback on what we just covered or what Sharon just covered in the few slides that we just presented to you so far? Anything shocking? How do you guys feel about how the roots of rum and how that came about?
when we hear the stories of slavery, it's really heartrending how the enslavers treated Black folks just to make the almighty dollar. And the more I read about it, the more it disgusts me. And, you know, we have to continue to this day to keep fighting the racism that's been inflicted on us.
Yeah, definitely.
And one of the things that Sharon mentioned early, most of the rum is still controlled by the whites.
Yes.
Because it's very lucrative and they can make money. So in Barbados, we still have the wars, a white family that control the rum system in Barbados. And it comes down from generations. So she's right, it's still controlled by the whites of the Caribbean, the rum production system.
I see Alicia has your hand up. Go ahead. You're muted, Alicia. You're unmute, yeah.
Barbados is a very sad case because Montgay was sold to a French concern about 4 to 5 years ago. So it's going to be a long time before Black people own the rum production in Barbados. I was shocked when I heard that sale had gone through. We don't make an effort to keep large industry within the hands of the native people. I brought it to the High Commissioner's attention briefly that they've got to have some sort of rule, as they have in Canada, that the local population should be approached first. Maybe 4 or 5 families would have had enough money to buy Montgay, but it's gone to France.
An interesting thing, because what we're seeing also is there's a lot of amalgamation. And when we talk about the different countries, we'll see the different companies that have bought, like, you know, can jump a little ahead. Campari Group, which is an Italian group, has bought, you know, Appleton Estate and owns Appleton Estate, Jane and Ray and nephew. But other, sometimes it's moved into what we call a business transaction nowadays. You know, it was owned by Spanish. It's owned by this. It was owned by the Spanish and now owned by Italians, right? And it's a matter of
it's 6 of one and half a dozen of the other. And
the question is, what can the countries manage these? I mean, we saw this with Air Jamaica, not owned by Jamaica anymore, right? It is. It's out of the hands of Jamaica. So what are the finances, and what are the finances of the countries? And is this a priority for the countries is the question that we have to ask. Phil, I'm just gonna ask Phil, I'm just gonna change, we're gonna come back to this, but back on what we spoke about, I'm gonna make you an admin, and I want you to share the image that you shared with me just now around the cane cutting. So like, and I'm glad you shared that image with me. Chris, can you make
yeah, I'm making Phil co-host right now.
Co-host, great. Because I think it's important to share that, like in Brazil that has the highest number of, I'm sorry, someone's calling on Facebook if you heard that. The highest number of enslaved people, over 12 million people were shipped to, when you say no, it means no. I'm not available. Over 12 million people were shipped to Brazil. And I want to bring up Enslaved, which is produced by, it's on CBC Gem and produced by Samuel L. Jackson. It's a 6-part series, and I think it was part 3 or 4 part 2 actually, that talks about Brazil and the cane cutting. And a lot of the cane cutting still happens like it did in 15 whenever, and 16 whatever, and 17 whatever, just like with the bow hooks and the machetes. So Phil, do you have that image? If you could share that with, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to ask you to share that image that you sent to me. I see, Mark. I think you had unmuted. Did you want to say something too?
No, I'm fine. I'm just enjoying information so far. So.
Okay. Okay. No. Okay. All right. So, have you found that, Phil?
Yeah, just give me a second. I just need to bring it up on my screen.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, yeah. You can just keep talking, and when I'm ready, I'll just
yes, yeah, I'll do, like, straighten, lengthen. Yeah, but when you think about not only what it takes to create that, what it takes to create this product, the sugar, and there was a question that was asked today, like, how do people think about the rum could have been made out of sugar, right? That was a question that came up today, and I don't know if anybody has an answer to that, but I would say that it could have been just out of sheer happenstance. You have the sugar waiting there, and then all of a sudden, the sugar waiting to be processed, and then it ferments, and then all of a sudden you have this new thing. I mean, keep in mind the rum that was made in the early 1600s or mid 1600s is not the rum that we're enjoying today, right? But it did give that high, where it gave that semblance that we have today. He's ready. Go ahead.
Okay, go right ahead.
Share the image.
So can everybody see that?
Yes.
Coming up.
It's coming up. Here we go.
So yeah, it's just something to bear in mind. I am a rum lover. I'm a rum collector, and just before the pandemic, I went to Jamaica. I was working on some projects, whatever. I ended up at the Worthy Park Estate. I mean, I grew up in Jamaica, and I have very fond memories of the night sky glowing red from the burning sugarcane, them burning the leaves off before cutting the canes, before taking them to the distillery. So I went to this distillery just before the pandemic, and they gave me a tour of the place. And what struck me was the working conditions of the cane cutters. It's really not very much different from what it was back in the days of slavery. And one of the reasons they still, for the most part, it was explained to me, one of the main reasons is still, for the most part, cut by hand, is that if it is cut by machine, the machine doesn't cut the sugarcane low enough to the ground, and so you end up with a lot of wasting. And so they're forced to do it by hand, with very, very few exceptions at that estate. So it's just, whenever I take a sip of rum, I always bear in mind the conditions of the cane cutters, which is really, really not very dissimilar from what it was back in the days of slavery. And for quite a few of these cane cutters, they are really not happy with the conditions, because they don't get paid enough. And like I said, it's really, really, really backbreaking work. That's it.
Wow. Just on that point, and we talked about, the machetes and the instruments that they use. Do they talk about injury? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
No, I didn't get into that with them, but I mean, it's, from what I've heard from other people, the injury rate is still pretty high. It's pretty dangerous. The leaves of the sugarcane, they're really razor sharp.
Sharp, yeah.
Which is one of the reasons why they burn it, but it's really, really sharp. Yeah. If you're not careful, you're going to slice yourself pretty badly.
Thanks.
And not to mention snakes and all of that. It's, you talk about the rats, but they're also snakes.
That's true.
Yes.
Another reason why they had to burn it.
Why they burn, yes. In Miami and those places, they burn because of the snakes.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the other things too, that we also know that Britain with the Caribbean with the for the process of sugar as well as rum, because we had to send the sugar to Britain to be processed, and then Tehran bought it back. So that was one, and that's a big discussion now, that we will produce it, and then they will say together refine to put together on the market. You have to send it to Britain to get refined. Then when we want it back now to put on our shelves, we had to buy it back at market price. So Britain did,
In a number.
Mm.
Yeah.
We have one person that has their hand up.
Yes, I wanted to say, in terms of the origin of the production of rum, we still need to do a lot of research, because we don't know what skills the Africans brought with them We don't know where the Europeans got this idea from. Did they copy it from Africa? Because Africans were very skilled when Europeans met them in metallurgy and other forms of production. Because I just don't know where Europeans would get this idea that you could create sugar from rum. I don't think labs were that developed then. They must have seen it someplace. However, in terms of ownership of rum, I've been thinking maybe this is a new term, but the patenting, the original, the patenting probably belonged to the Europeans, and they owned, what can I say? They accepted that ownership. And many years ago, I met in Montreal a white lady who told me that there was a sugar strike and sugar was short, but her family in Montreal had sugar. Ooh la la, lots of sugar, because her family was in charge of some plantation in Jamaica. And I mean, this was in the, I would say probably 20th century. So she was talking about. So it's a lot of research that needs to be done. We've just touched the tip of the iceberg.
Yes, and I think that, you know, with research, we have to, it's who's looking into it and where's the research and where can we find it, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
Any other questions?
I think Hazel, I think I saw Hazel, your hand was
Yes,
up.
I wanted to know also about the molasses, because the molasses comes from the sugar cane, isn't that so?
Yes.
From the juice of the sugar cane.
Yes.
So it's from the molasses, then you have the sugar.
Yes.
I just wanted to find out if that's the correct.
Yes. One of the process, I go to molasses first and being boiled. And I don't know Liber would able to, but Guyana actually taught the Belgians how, when it comes to that time, because most of our boiler people, most of our people that did the sugar and that all came out of Guyana, because Guyana was known to be one of the biggest producers of sugar and the process, but they was way ahead of the game. So I know, and we have quite a few factories in Barbados. I think now we only have one, and that one factory is just to produce rum. You know, do the process of molasses, sugar, and rum. So it only showed the difference how things evolve over the years.
Yeah, I can tell you that I had a experience of even working in a factory as a youngster during the holidays when you were not going to school, and I've watched the process done. After the juice is boiled, you come up with something which they call the sling, which is dark in color, which is really molasses and some grains of sugar in it. Then it goes into a machine, which is constantly turning, and they call it the crystallizers, which separate most of the molasses from grains. Then they go into the pans, which spin at the centrifugal pans, they spin at great speed. And that separates the molasses from the grains. Then the molasses is used to make the rum. So the rum comes from the molasses.
Yes.
Yes, and that's
it's an interesting thing to watch it operate. And I have a niece, she was a chemical engineer at manufacturers, and I've been able to go back and look at some of them, and much hasn't changed from when I was a youngster. They still do it the same way.
Amazing. We have here in the chat, when the Arab peoples in the 18th century AD invaded Persia in I guess it's 642 AD, they found sugarcane being grown and learned how sugar was made. Their expansion continued. They established sugar production in other lands that conquered, including North Africa and Spain. So there's a lot of history.
Yeah, thank you, Hector. So we're at the point where I think it's a great point that we can jump into and taking a look at what rum production was and is today. So always good to look at numbers and to see that this is not just something that's just come about. We're looking at, if you talked earlier, anywhere from 1620 or 40, depending on
40.
who you're quoting, who your source is, right? Until today. So that's over 380 years of producing this one thing called rum. And so back in the time in the 16th, the 16th, 17th, 18th century, 19th century, as was described by Liebert, right? The juice is taken out, it's put into a vat, and the boiler decides when it's about to crystallize, and then they would temper it with lime juice, right? This is in the 17th, 18th, 19th century, and then transferred to an unheated cooling vat. Once cooled, it's transferred to clay pots, and then several days later, in the bottoms of the hole, the holes are removed and molasses drains out. The molasses is taken to the spirit or still house and distilled into rum, and rum is aged generally in oak barrels. And what's left in the pots was dried and sent to Europe and North America. And hence, I think, as a side note, when you think about all those scones that we eat and all that stuff about, the sweets in England, hence, hey, where did it come from?
Yeah.
The Caribbean.
The leftovers.
There's a great wealth of, the sugar that made Britain what it is today in so many ways, culinary and otherwise. So today, the process hasn't really changed. We talked about the harvesting of the sugar cane, the extracting the juice, the fermenting, and there's the flavors though that are added, and the fermentation of other substances in the molasses enhances the liquid's flavor and aroma. The distillation here is sometimes, after distilling, the rum is sometimes darkened by the addition of caramel and is aged 5 to 7 years. Lighter, drier rums are rapidly fermented with cultured yeast and are aged for about 1 to 4 years. So more machinery used today. Phil talked about the fact that the cutting, the harvesting part is still in some areas man driven. So also rum today has taken on, back then it was a commodity. Pirates would get rum. We hear of stories of men, women, and children drinking over 3 gallons of rum in a year. But rum has, gone from, is still in a dark period because we hear about the conditions of the cane cutters, but it's gone to more celebrated status in today's reality, right? So you have the Miami Rum Festival, the Rum and Reggae Festival in London and Bristol, and the Jamaica Rum Festival. That is a big deal when you go onto their website. But in each place, you have varieties of rum, and they have different names: Kill Devil, Demon Water, Nelson's Blood. I think my name is Nelson, so I got to look into that one.
A lot of deadly stuff.
Or Pirate's Drink, which makes real sense because that would be their haul, right? The pirates will really take away any rum that was in there that they could get. So there are different kinds of rum, as we know, and there's different processes to make the rum what it is. And it's actually what some call the Wild West of spirits because of the many classifications, which can be somewhat confusing, right? And depending on how the rum is created, fermentation, distillation, blending styles, aging techniques, it all takes on new meaning. And, like with many things, there's trial and error that goes into how things are done and how rum is made. So just a caption here of the different types of rum. There's white or clear, and some of the rums that we know about, Bacardi, Mount Gay, you see there is a white rum. You have the gold or pale. Also you have a Bacardi rum, and then you have a dark or black. And you can see the different types here. I think Bacardi has, go ahead, Phil, I see you.
Sharon.
Tell me.
Oh, I'm just bugging you right now, eh?
Yes, I know.
As a Jamaican, you don't think you're missing one rum there?
I know I'm missing one rum, but I haven't.
See how quickly he caught that?
I was actually saying the same thing, but I was just listening out. Where is the Appleton rum? What's going on with the Appleton rum? One of the most famous rum.
Wait, 1 second.
Okay.
I was just waiting to hear Cavalier.
Oh.
The presentation isn't done yet, folks. Let me see.
Ray and nephew.
I didn't forget it. I didn't forget. This is a cut and paste.
Wait, you leave the best for the last.
You still have to talk about El Dorado, which is winning all the competitions all over the world.
It's excellent.
You see the thing?
El Dorado is number one.
Now you see how we get personalized now.
Yes,
How we start personalizing the rap. So Phil says, open the can of worms that the conversation going to change now.
Well, the conversation going to change. We're going to talk about all the different rums. So this was just the example. This is just an example, just to give the different shades of the rum. So now we're going to talk about our rums. Now, I want to say thank you to everyone who contributed to this presentation. I know that you're here, and it's all that great information put together to make this presentation what it is. So we're going to start off with Antigua and Barbuda, and I know that they have some rum to talk about. Now, Irene, would you like me to continue the conversation, or would you like to say something?
No, it's all there. I certainly will promote our Cavalier, and especially our award-winning English Harbor rum. And I'm just pleased that it was local rum owners that started the distillery. Yes, the distillery is still in the hands of the colonizers. And as somebody pointed out, what is it that we have to do to make sure that the natives own a greater share of the products that they produce? But certainly rum is our favorite cocktail drink. It is promoted because it's promoted through our tourist industry. And we have some great rums, the Cavalier, which you can get either white or dark, and the English Harbor rum, which I love. Rum and Coke was my favorite drink as a teenager. I don't drink a lot of it, but I use rum for a lot of things. The dark cake, that's what we use it for mostly.
Mm-hmm.
But it is, you don't go to Antigua and not come back without one of our main rums, the Cavalier, the English Harbor rum. And there are a couple of others. I don't remember their names right now.
Oops, sorry. Yes.
Can I have a question?
Sure, go ahead.
What is the, I think the one thing we all look for when we talk about rum, what's the percentage? Who was speaking on the rum and this one? On these, is this how I usually have friendly debates with my my Caribbean compadres? They say who has the strongest rum. So what's the strength of these rums? Do you have any idea? And
I think isn't it is it 5% or 80% alcohol? I remember just reading the amount of alcohol.
So on Cavalier, it says 151 proof. It says 76.5% alcohol by volume.
Yes.
Right? So it's pretty strong. So I think Mark is keeping score here because he's going to look at the nephew to see.
Well, yeah, I want the argument to be put to once and for all. So this presentation is pretty good. We're going to deal with facts.
Stronger.
Can the Cavalier be begotten? In North America, for example, SCBO?
Yeah.
Not that
Yes, it's sold all over. It is sold all over.
Because we have trouble with the Appleton in Quebec, but we can get it in LCBO Toronto. Like you can't get the Appleton rum in the SAQ.
You mean the real Appleton?
The real Appleton and the Ray nephew, the white rum.
Yeah, you can get Appleton in at the SAQ, not the Ray nephew, but
no, I'm talking to Ray nephew.
Yeah,
no, you can't. Oh,
okay. Thank you so much. So 76%. I'm keeping score.
Yes, thank you, Mark. You'll do that. You'll do that presentation at the end. So it's really interesting to hear about the rums and in each place. So while there's hurt in the history of rum production, there's also this pride that different islands have when talking about the rums that come from their specific place. And Antigua, as you can see here, 1674. That's where that's when that cane production started and developed. Took off half of Antigua. Right. And as Irina was saying, in the 20th century, you have these, the Antigua Distillery Limited was formed by rum shop owners, right? So this, I guess you're talking about the localness of the rum production.
Yeah,
and so,
8 of them. Yeah.
Yes. So you had the Caballero brand, which I couldn't find actually, but that became English Harbor. Right, in 1934, and we talk about the aging from 5 to 7 years in the bourbon barrels, and it's exclusively American oak barrels. For the talk about taste and talk about the distinctiveness of the rum. And then you have later in the 1950s, say the new kid on the block is a Cavalier rum, and that was introduced and remains very successful as Irene was saying, and it's exported everywhere, right?
And remember that, Sharon, sugarcane was the main industry for Antigua in the early years, and now most of the molasses comes from Guyana because Antigua doesn't produce sugar anymore.
Wow, there are two. So Barbados and Antigua depend heavily on Guyana for molasses.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have the English Harbor, and I like this part of the story because English Harbor talks about is named after the scenic port in the Caribbean island of Antigua in the Lyra part, and pays a homage to the naval traditions of Antigua. It's a very special name, but not only identifies the rum, it also identifies the largest natural harbor in the Caribbean. It served for years as an important naval base and is now a popular anchorage for yachts. So everybody who wants to anchor their yacht, you know where to go. It's the English Harbor in Antigua.
Even the Russians.
And it's made from, the English Harbor rum is made at the Antigua distillery, and the only one, which is the only one on the island. And it's fermented using baker's yeast and open fermentation vats. And I know that in Jamaica, they use that similar techniques too, open fermentation vats. All English Harbor rums are light-bodied. Its distillation in a column still gives a beautiful aromatic complexity. And the English Harbor 5 can be found on every shelf in Antigua. Now I want to segue into, before we get to Barbados, I want to segue into the fact that one of the things that we talked about in putting this event together and having it online and to talk about the rums is a precursor and to what Mark said, which was, at some level what he said was about, which is the strongest one. So the idea around this event is, this is part one, and part two would be tasting these different rums, having an event where we've learned about the rums and having a space and time to actually taste them together. I think that would be really nice. And then we could really have a throwdown competition about which one's the better rum. I know the competition started online here.
Yes.
Not better, stronger, because all of them have different things.
Yeah, stronger.
Make it very clear.
So now we'll turn to Barbados. Cynthia or Nigel or Chris or any Bajans, would you like to say something?
Well,
about
just to clarify, our rum, the alcohol percentages for Mark, since he's keeping score, can range between 40 to 43%. So I don't know if that's not the strongest, I know, but I just wanted to put it out there. And I'm just talking about Mongué right now. So so Mark can write that down.
No, but we also have something called overproof.
Yes, we also have overproof as well.
But the one that Cynthia is speaking about, that is for shipping and marketing purpose. But when you go to Barbados, you can get an overproof that is very strong. So
do you know how strong it is? Is it stronger than Ray and Nephew?
I don't think it might. I don't think so. Because the only person who can do Ray and Nephew is Jamaicans. Straight, I should say. No, I think Ray and Nephew is the strongest rum on the market.
I'm on the earth.
I
on the earth.
I see Phil shaking his head. Go ahead, Liebert, sorry.
No, I beg to differ. Ray and Nephew is not the strongest.
Oh.
High wine.
So we're going to be talking about high wine soon.
Is that a rum, Liebert, or a wine? I wine sounds like a wine. It doesn't qualify.
That we used to get away with that long ago until they start hiring Caribbean people at the airport. They come and say, "Oh, it's wine. Go on." Now they just look at it and they smile. Can't pass with that. You have to pay duty.
Wow.
Yeah.
So Phil,
the difference between the high wine and the Ray and Nephew is just marginal. High wine is a little bit stronger, but not only that, in Guyana they've learned to breathe the smell out of it. Because I'll be very honest with you, if you were to open a bottle of Ray and Nephew in Guyana, the police might hold you. You will think it is what we call bush rum or
moonshine.
Moonshine. It is the smell. The high wine does not have that smell, and it is stronger. They have learned how to. The Guyanese, they're very skillful, as you say, in sugar making, and they kept a closed shop. They were not teaching anybody. They would go to various countries and work in Africa and all of that, but they were not teaching anybody. For somebody like me who had a chance to work on the pan floor, as they call it, is because I had a cousin who was a sugar boiler. Other than that, they don't let you there. So high wine, and I'll be willing anytime to let you have a smell and taste of high wine. But be careful.
I think we're going to hold you to that. We're going to hold you to that.
Yeah, no problem.
But Liebert tell you you're not responsible for what happened after.
No.
Put in a disclaimer.
I have a good story. I came back once and went to Toronto, and I took half a bottle for a friend of mine, which his sister had given me in Guyana to give to him. And this fellow was coming from church, and he stopped by, and he was arguing the same thing, that Ray and Nephew is higher and stronger and whatnot. And my friend gave him a drink. Oh, this, and he threw it down. We had to hold him and give him water, because it sort of takes the oxygen out of your system right away. His eyes start bulging and he started to sweat.
Oh my!
You can't drink it like that.
My gosh!
You have to dilute it in water.
Amazing.
And
but the older men used to drink it. They would throw it there, hold it in their mouth, then take water and throw it, and then make one swallow without inhaling, because they said if you inhale, then you have a problem.
Mm-hmm.
But we young people, we don't have those skills anymore.
Well, you know, I think there's a lot of good stories about the different rums, and in Barbados, we certainly know about Mount Gay, and what you see listed above here are the distilleries that still exist in Barbados. So Mount Gay, there's St. Nicholas Abbey,
yes,
the Four Square Rum Factory and Heritage Park,
yes,
and the West Indian Rum Distillery. So, you know, as you can see here, we got this from the tourist board, Barbados Tourist Board, and again, highlighting the fact that rum was born in Barbados, and that if you visit Barbados, you must visit one of these distilleries. Whoops, sorry, let's go back here. We must visit one of those distilleries to get the true experience of Barbados.
Yes, the full experience. And I can tell you a story when I was small, because I used to spend my summers in Barbados, even since I was 3 years old. So every summer I was in Barbados for the rest of the summer, spending time with my grandparents. And one time I saw my grandfather drinking rum. It was the first time I saw him drinking it. And he was sitting there in his chair and he's drinking it. And of course, my eyes were like wide open saying, "What is that?" And he looked at me, he goes, "Well, do you want some?" And I said, "Well, of course, I'm 3 years old." I was like, yeah, I want it. So my grandfather gave it to me, and my mother was so upset because I slept for the rest of the evening. And he didn't tell her anything, and until like maybe the next day, because she was like, "Oh, is she sick?" He's like, "No, she's not sick. She just had a sip of my rum," and my mother just went off. So that was my first experience of having rum in Barbados.
And Sharon, all of those distilleries, we have the tours. When you go to Barbados, you get tours, and some of them included lunch. But all the ones you see there, you have the tours on a daily basis, where you sample the rum, and it's a part of the whole tourist experience when you go to Barbados.
Fantastic.
And Nicholas Abbey offers a train ride also.
Yes.
Oh,
that's new. Yes.
Nice.
Yes.
Very nice. So here we jump into Dominica. And in Dominica, they have two estates that are still functional. So the Marcoutcherie estate and the Belfast estate. And they're proud to say that the Marcoutcherie estate is 100% homegrown when made with local cane. History dating back to pre-war years. And Dominica's major rum distillery, the Marcoutcherie estate, has been in the Shillingford family for several generations and is now the only official distillery on the island to produce rum from the local cane. Marcoutcherie uses cane, which is only grown on the Shillingford estate. And you can see here images of the Marcoutcherie rum and some rums called Bois Bondé, Red Cap rum, Soca rum. As you can see, they also have an overproof, and the special rum. So something to look out for Dominica.
What do these stand for, Deadly?
I don't know. I could have to ask Ketlin.
Dominica special one.
You have to ask Ketlin for sure. So Sharon Baptiste is here representing the Grenada Nationals Association of Montreal, and I will ask her to talk about the rums in Grenada.
Before you start, can I ask a question, because I'm a novice when it comes. So what is the difference between the rum and the overproof? Phil, seems like you have a little edge on that. Well, why do we produce an overproof? Is it just a less concentrated? What's the overproof? I always hear about overproof and I don't know what it is.
Overproof is less diluted with water.
It's less diluted?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's stronger.
It's definitely stronger.
Okay.
Thank you. And I think the overproof too was not really meant to be marketed. I think it was mostly for, inside, and then eventually they marketed. But most of the time, overproofs will come from people that work inside the the distillery that had, you know, me, I do
So
some great illegally.
you know a few stories. That is true.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. So Sharon, are you here?
Yes, I
Yes.
am.
There we go.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I was listening to Sharon's story and about how the rum came about, and you know, it gives you a little clench in the stomach because we do enjoy it so much right now, and we're proud of what we have, and still we would be even prouder as Cynthia said, if we were the locals or the native ones that was reaping most of the benefit from that right now. Anyway, in Grenada, we have Westerhall 10, Westerhall Estate Jack Iron, Old Grog, Clockscoat Black Gold, Clockscoat Pure White, and the list goes on. But Clockscoat also has flavored rum, sorrel, mojito, coconut, passion fruit. As you see here, I have one. I don't know if you can see it. The Clockscoat and Clockscoat passion fruit and Clockscoat sorrel. It's almost finished because, sorry, I'm drinking it. Okay. Grenada is known for as the Isle of Spice in the Caribbean. It's a small island. Despite its size, it's producer of many rums. At River Antoine, a nearly 2-century-old water wheel powered the cane mill. The resulting cane juice is processed the same way it was in 1785. Clockscoat has been in operation since 1937. They are the largest distillery on the island, and this authentic distillery is an earnest tribute to the storied history of Caribbean rum, making a wide selection of rum from flavored to excellent aged sippers. The Westerhall Estate has been producing rum since the 18th century and still has some of its original machinery on the estate today. Most of the rums are naturally infused with spice and flavors of the island, nutmeg and cinnamon. And during the blending process, these flavors are filtered into the rum, giving it a distinctive Grenadian spice, yet smooth taste. Although Clockscoats in St. George's and Westerhall rum in St. David's and River Antoine are the usual known companies. In the past 5 years, Grenada had 5 new distilleries. Renegade Rum Distilleries in St. Andrews, Eastern Caribbean Rum in St. Andrews, Westerhall Estate Rum in St. Andrews, River Antoine in St. Patrick's, and St. Antoine de Bourgogne in Brugge. Very little of our rum is exported from Grenada, so visiting the island might be your very best bet to acquire it, or a shot from a local private stash. Thank you. and our proof, this one is 69 Rivers. Rivers is 69. I don't have a Clockscoat, but Clockscoat is marketed, I think, at 70% proof for traveling. And yes, we do have an overproof that can't leave the island, or can't leave the island labeling overproof.
Thank you. That's, you know, I think Mark is really I'm probably going to plan a trip to Grenada now, because there's 2 overproof and you can't get it outside, right? Can you get any of those alcohols at the SAQ?
No, Grenadian rum are not marketed in Canada. at all. So it's mainly private people. We have Wester Hall rum in some parts of the US, but besides that, no, they're mainly brought in privately.
All right.
Well, this is good stuff because I'm actually planning right as we speak a Southern Caribbean cruise to Grenada, St. Vincent, Trinidad, some of the ones, the Caribbean that I haven't visited. So I'll be picking up a couple of these things, the old grog, and try to see some. That's good. This information is pretty good. I just took a photo of it. I'm taking photos of them. So.
You can only bring back 2 bottles now.
I'm gonna bring back a bottle of each.
We
I
have
just have a question. I don't know if why is it your rum isn't exported? You have
well, I suppose it all have to do with all the red tapes and the expenses and the licensing and everything that it goes through. As I said, we're not so big. We're still like very small country, and there are so many red tapes that the country does not. And then I guess it's supposed to be like us in the diaspora to try to get that, but it hasn't been. So hopefully, as the Caribbean Coalition together, we can change some of these things.
Okay, thank you.
Look forward to that. So next, thank you so much, Sharon. That's great information. Next, we have Guyana. And I do have a presentation from Lieber. So how would you like to proceed?
I don't know because I got documentation prepared for us by the High Commissioner's office, and I sent you copies. What I would ask you to do is to forward that to all the people who are on the program if possible, but especially to our sister organizations. I know it's 20 to 6 already. But rum in Guyana.
But sorry, Liebert, it was, although it's I definitely will do that. I will forward it, but I think it's also adds, it wasn't a long presentation in the end, right?
No.
So we can do both if you want. I definitely could forward it and also share it here.
All right, I would do it then.
Okay.
It is saying that rum really is produced in the county of Demerara, because Guyana is divided into 3 big counties: Essequibo, Demerara, and Berbice, Demerara being the middle county. The story of rum started in Guyana in the 1640s with the introduction of sugarcane by the early European settlers. By 1670, the foundation of Demerara rum production was laid down with the establishment of distilling in the territory of British Guyana. In the 1600s, the county of Demerara, once covered by the Atlantic Ocean, was recovered by the Dutch using their ingenious land reclamation method. The Dutch successfully reclaimed the land, resulting in the soil that was very high in minerality and nutrient, paving the way for sugar and sugarcane cultivation in the 1650s. Guyana sugar industry was founded in 1658, before the settlement of the province of Demerara and Berbice. There were Dutch companies that were Dutch plantations that were established on the Pomeroon River in the Essequibo, but sugar was not produced on a large scale until the 1700s, about 100 years later than in the rest of the Caribbean. So you know that sugar was in a large scale that late. Guyana's distinct ethnic makeup can be traced to conditions that prevailed during the colonial period. To supply the labor required for sugar cultivation, plantation owners at first brought slaves from West Africa. Thousands of slaves were forcefully brought each year as plantations expanded. More than 100,000 slaves worked in the colony by 1830. As a matter of fact, records show that they had over, at one time, they had over 130,000 slaves in Guyana. By 1759, and this is in the 1700s, there were 120 plantations along the Montreal River and 200 on the east bank of the Esquimalt. The main crop was sugar, and as labor increased, the river estates were gradually abandoned and the planters wrestled the coast from the sea and the swamp, and they settled there. So they moved the estates from the riverine area now to the coast. Since Guyana's plantation owners entered the sugar industry late, they were able to import relatively advanced equipment and milling material for sugarcane. As one of Guyana's most valuable products, this investment in advanced equipment gave the local sugar industry a firm foundation and made it the leading sector of the local economy. Guyana rum goes back to the early days of cultivating sugarcane and producing all the amazing things possible with cane. By the 1780s, there were over 300 distilleries producing their own distinct rum, each with its own mark identification in identifying its origin from the Demerara sugar and molasses. And I can tell you as a young man, I knew about so many different blends that do not exist now. And I must also put in this at the moment. In 1966, when we had our independence, we saw a slew of rums, but they were only made for export. So we never knew these like King of Diamond and Old Kai whiskey and all of that. They were being produced in Guyana, but only for export, and for independence, they allowed all of them to be sold in the country that one time. Guyana rum production goes back to the early days of cultivating sugarcane and producing all the amazing things possible with cane. 300 distilleries were going on, and if you look at it, you see Golden Devil rum, you got small batch rum, you had old age rum, you had rum from every estate produced its own rum. There's a rum called Enmore. All of that were estates that produced their own rum. In the 1800s, colonial rum using British blending were becoming more popular. And the first old vatted Demerara, that is the OVD rum, was made with rum produced by Putmarant. This is a special sugarcane factory. The distillery as a major component. In the 1900s, the period saw an unexpected drop in the price of sugar and the introduction of taxes, resulting in the severe consolidation of the sugar industry, as it was not economical for all estates to remain in operation. By 1942, there were 9 remaining distilleries. In 1999, final merger of the remaining sugar estates and distilleries by transfer of various stills, equipment and expertise went to Demerara Distilleries Limited. And this is the only active distillery and diamond estate on the east bank of the Demerara River. In the 2000s, Guyana has over the years proudly presented its superb aged rum, born of skill and mellowed by the passage of time. Now, we talked about the Demerara rum. We talk about El Dorado, but there's another big distillery there that also runs there. We will talk about that in a few minutes. Drawing on 200 years of the craft, passion and wisdom, El Dorado rum making, the legacy is world renowned, which is original distilling equipment and heritage stills, combined the traditional with the technology of today, have captured every ounce of Guyana rich history in the full expression of the El Dorado rum. The award-winning El Dorado rum range in a unique collection. The age rum selection from 3 years old to 25 years old. So you can get all these rums. The popular El Dorado 12-year-old is really a great rum to nose to the glass. Oak and wood spices provide a nice backdrop for sweet baking spice and rich molasses that rise into the breezes above the glass and as it enters your mouth with a spicy, sweet baking spice explosion. The overall flavor is sweet, but not overwhelming so, and a soft nuttiness lies under the other flavors, giving the rum just a hint of bitterness, which offset the sweetness nicely. El Dorado 15-year-old immediately reminds you of an afternoon abroad where you have coffee or tea with some cakes. It gives off welcoming scents and taste of mocha, dark cocoa nibs, raisins, banana syrup, chocolate cake, cinnamon, hints of dandelion root tea, and a hint of Earl Grey tea. Now, I told you about the second distillery. This distillery is called Banks DIH, which is Banks de Gar Imperial House. This distillery existed before it introduced Banks beer to Guyana and Barbados. The famous extra mature rum produced by Banks DIH Limited in Guyana are correctly blended and bottled because Banks DIH Limited does not own any cane fields or stills. In the former days, they bought Demerara rum from DDL, which is Demerara Distilleries Limited. But nowadays, they buy their bulk rum from their sister Caribbean nations. So they're supporting the Caribbean market. The rum is aged in former bourbon casks and then finished in former sherry casks. The age on the bottle refers to the age of the youngest rum in the blend, even though the oldest may be many years older. XM rum blends maintain their popularity, not least of which is the XM 5 years old. Another rum, XM 2 years old brown, was introduced in the 1990s and promoted in concert with a local dish, the dish being duck curry, becoming so entwined with its own promotion that it is known locally as a duck curry rum. The extra white, developed in 2000, remain a favorite and staple tippling rum in regular agricultural area and sugar estates, where it purported property of not creating a hangover. It is the housewife moniker of, they call it, stay home darling rum. Now, with the collective amount of awards and worldwide recognition of El Dorado and XM rum of garnered, it says something of how deeply the various rums made in Guyana have entwined themselves into local and foreign cultures to this day. West Indies Rum and Spirit Producers Association. We heard about those. It consists of distillers associations in the Caribbean, including Antigua, Barbados, Antigua and Barbuda, Barbados, Belize, Guyana, Grenada, Haiti, Jamaica, St. Lucia, Suriname, Trinidad, the Bahamas, Dominica, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Vincent and the Grenadines are all associated members. Mr. Kamal Samaru is the executive chairman of that organization. There's a second organization in the Caribbean. They call it the Brewers Association. It consists of brewers in the Caribbean and multinational brewing companies operating in the Caribbean. Producers and markets are brewed product in the Caribbean. Members include Antigua and Barbuda, Barbados, Belize, Cayman Island, Dominica, Dominican Republic, Grenada, Guyana, Haiti, Jamaica, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, St. Lucia, St. Kitts and Nevis, Suriname, Trinidad and Tobago. The associate members are Diego, Heineken, and Royal Unibrew. Now, all these you can get by going to www.gaisuco.gov, www.agriculture.gov.gy, www.demararidistillers.com, and www.banksdih.com. One thing I want to say before I finish, thanks for listening. And this was prepared for us by the embassy. The two distillers in Guyana are all locally owned. They're not foreign owned. You can buy shares in them. And I'm not sure that there might not be some foreigner who has bought shares. But people like me are allowed to buy shares in these breweries. So we're trying to keep the money at home. Thank you very much for listening. And please circulate it so that people can take some time to read it and digest it, because I ran through it very quickly.
Thank you.
Good job there. I wanted to ask a question. Talked about the, maybe you know, you don't, that in the 1900s, the prices of was sugar drop that created, do we know why that was? Was there an alternative modes of sweetening? Was it rational? What was the reasoning for that? Did you come across that in the research?
They started to say that sugar was bad for your body. And I think it was an aim to promote beet sugar.
Yeah, beet sugar, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
beet sugar daddy, yes.
This is where, when Guyana was independent, and you and all of us would know this. You're not in control of anything. If you cannot set the price for the goods you're selling to somebody and set the price for what you're buying from them, you're not in charge.
That's right.
So what they say, the sugar is bad for you, and they cut the price. It's not that you're reducing the price. Oh, we would not buy you sugar for 10 cents. So even now, it is costing Guyana more to produce a pound of sugar than they're selling it for. But just
Why do they continue to do that then?
Just to keep people working, they have to subsidize the industry.
Good, thanks for that information. It's good to know.
Any questions? Any other questions?
But one of the things that we know, going back, that Guyana was one of the leading, not the Caribbean, a part of the Caribbean group when it comes to producing sugar and the factories, because I remember hearing guys making jokes that one factory in Guyana is the size of one parish in Barbados, because it was made fun of Barbados is so small. This guy told me There's one factory in Guyana that's the size of parish in Barbados. So they had some big factories, and we know that a lot of our boilers, and I mean, the Prime Minister even spoke about it when we had the President of Guyana and Barbados. There are a lot of our skills when it comes to boilers and factory and maintenance, they all came out of Guyana. So it's true that Guyana was the leader when it comes to the sugar, but because they had the land and they had the water, they had everything.
Yeah. And the thing was that the Dutch, and even now, Holland is the only country that is getting bigger because they're stealing from the sea. When they saw where the Atlantic came into Guyana, all where we were living on the coastline, Georgetown, they never existed. They were all underwater. As the sea would come in and then when it goes out, all that was a mud flat. So the Dutch empowered that. And it was much easier to plant sugar cane on a flat land. They didn't have to worry about the mountains. The mountains were far inland.
So that was going to be one of my other questions, because I wanted to know what are the conditions for successful sugar cane. So you said flatlands are better, or was just easier?
Flatlands were better.
Okay.
Because even for the transportation and all of that.
Yes.
And in Guyana, the transportation of the cane was cheaper because they used water.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Or they dug canals, and the harvesters would throw the cane in these, we call them punts, like barges, and even mules or tractors just pull them to the factories. So even transportation was cheap in Guyana.
But and one of the things too, and Alicia might be able to give us more insight to this. We had Prime Minister Barrow said that he's looking forward for the day where he don't see a cane blade in Barbados, because it was so much hard work and so labor intense to produce the sugar. He said that he would like to see the day that he will not see a cane blade in Barbados. But people took it the wrong way, that he wanted to get rid of the sugar industry because it was too much hard work for the Black people. Yeah. But one of the things people interpret it the way they want, because you know that when it comes into cane and sugar, it was mainly the poor Blacks that was laboring, and you see how they're still cutting the canes in some part of the world. So he, as Prime Minister, said he was looking forward to the day that he don't see a cane blade in Barbados.
Yeah.
Because of, yes.
I don't blame him, because I had the good fortune of meeting him a couple of times in Guyana. I know Bonham used to call him Dipper. I don't know what Dipper was.
The Dipper.
Yeah, two racketeers.
Yeah, they were good buddies.
Yeah.
And Dipper was a great cook.
And Burnham has Barbadian roots.
Oh, yeah.
From Mount Stanford and the Garden St. James.
My grandmother is from Barbados. So,
But before you stay on the topic, the reason why we have so many connections to Guyana, because most of the Belgians went to Guyana, Camarade went for the same cane, the sugar cane industry.
Yeah.
We went and got the training and came back to Barbados.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of connection with the.
When I was a child and a younger man, there was a lot of Barbados, and then we call them islanders in Guyana. They used to say they speak funny. but I mean, the traffic was from the islands to Guyana.
Yes.
Now it's the other way around.
Yes.
But you could have 4 or 5 neighbors around you, and they're not from Guyana.
Mm-hmm.
And sorry, go ahead.
I just have a side question for Mr. Liebert.
Mm-hmm.
What's the status of the beet sugar industry now in Guyana?
We don't do beet sugar in Guyana.
Okay.
No, only sugar cane.
You know,
No, what I was talking about the beet because the Americans and the Europeans were pushing beet.
Yeah, I remember that was happening in the Caribbean at one point.
That's where the problem started.
Yeah.
I have a friend that I had a friend from Guyana, and he said that they had a Bajan community right in where he lived, and there as kids used to make sure how Bajans is called a falcon. You can tell where the Bajan is like a falcon. And then he thought as a kid, they thought that was so funny when they had a Bajan community next to them talking about falcon. So Ghana has a lot of Bajans, man.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
All because of the sugar.
All because
yes.
And the Demerara River.
King sugar.
Yes.
It was King sugar.
That's it.
We have a town in the interior, which now is a city, but it's strictly islanders, as we call it, Jamaicans and Barbadians and so on, who have gone to the interior either for gold or diamond or timber, and they established this area, which has now got city status.
Right. Fantastic. I think Phil had a question.
No, I just had a comment about the Guyanese rums. I heartily endorse the Eldorado 12-year.
Absolutely.
It's
superb.
It's among my top.
This is the 12.
Phil, you ever hear about something called the plantation?
Say that again.
The plantation from Barbados.
Yeah, the Eldorado is. I mean, for the price, it's one of my top. I would say 10 rums.
But it's all around the same price, $35.
I'm going to recommend a rum to you since you're a connoisseur. Get your hands on the DDL 10-year-old, and then you tell me.
Because I had a rum tasting a couple of years ago. I had 13 rums, and everybody except one person picked the Eldorado 12 as their favorite, and Eldorado 15 as their favorite. The only exception was a person who picked the 15 as his favorite and the 12 as his second favorite.
It's a matter of taste.
Yeah, if you like sweeter, fuller rums at a good price, $35 for that.
It's $40 now.
How much?
$40.25.
It went up.
Yes.
And that is available here in Quebec, correct?
Yes.
Yes. Try the bank's DIH 10-year-old, and then you tell me. Try that 10-year-old.
All right, I have to go, unfortunately.
All right, then. Thanks so much for being here, Nigel.
Yeah.
Okay.
So now we're going to turn our attention to Jamaica.
And before I leave, I hope Mark is not slighted thinking I'm leaving as soon as Jamaicans. So I'm going to wait. I will wait because we are family. I gotta support my family, right?
All good, man. All good night.
Okay. All right.
Hey, I gotta talk to you about that cruise, man. All right, we'll talk.
Yes.
Okay, buddy.
So in Jamaica, and I know that Mark is here, and Phil probably wanted to say a few words, but in Jamaica, we have the Worthy Park Estate, as mentioned before. Phil had visited the Worthy Park in 2019. We have Appleton Estate, which is now owned by Campari Group. We have Hampton Estate. So I learned something new about Hampton Estate out of Trelawney. And National Rums of Jamaica, which is comprised of two former distilleries. So the Long Point Distillery, which has 250 years of operation, and the Clarendon Distillery. So don't quote, this is not me writing this, folks. This is research information that I found. So I'm sure people will have something to say, but Jamaican rums are described as funky and delicious. The best kind of rum you can drink. Research information. I see our connoisseur is like, I don't know. In the early 1900s, there were over 60 distilleries in Jamaica, but today there are the four that we described above. In July of this year, so 2 weeks ago, J. Ray Nephew Overproof has been designated as the official spirit of Jamaica's 60th celebration, because we're celebrating 60 years on August 6th, which is in about a week. And as a side note, we have a lot of activities happening at the Jamaica Association, and we're going to be sending you information on that soon. And J. Ray Nephew is, while it was chosen as the signature rum for the 60th celebration, you can see that's the new kid on the block, right, from 1825. We have Worthy Park, Rum Bar, and all those others. That distillery has been around since 1670. Second up is Appleton Estate, which is 1749, dates back to 1749. It's been in continuous operation. And a new estate that I learned about is Hampton Estate in Trelawney. That's been around since 1753. So I saw someone, I think it was Julie, who said, I got to try all these rums. And Hampton is very new to me. So Jamaicans on the call, or anyone on the call, have you heard about Hampton? Have you tried it? Is it anything synonymous to Janko Bati? I don't think so, but you can tell me.
Yeah, both Hampton and Worthy Park, they weren't in continuous production. I mean, Hampton used to, I can't remember the history now, but they stopped at one point. At one point, they were selling or exporting rums only to the UK. And then there was, I can't remember how many rums were being produced in Jamaica. At one point, they had to stop because there were too many rums being produced on the island. And it was only, see if I can remember this correctly now, the dates. I think it was in you can just go to the website and check. But I think it was in the early 2000s when Hampton started producing in Jamaica again. And I think it's the same thing for Worthy Park. Okay. But Appleton Estate now owns Ray Nephew. And yeah, I haven't tried the Hampton yet. It's really, really hard to find. Really hard to find. I don't know why. But none of these, I think the only one of the two, I would say, almost newer ones, the Worthy Park and the Hampton. I think maybe only the Hampton is available in Canada. I can't remember.
They may be what? They may be
available in Canada.
Okay. It's interesting because you mentioned the Worthy Park. I know there's a Jamaican family called the McConnells, who were in a lot of different, you know, the orange juice and other different food and other industries, if you will, that they started when they got Worthy Park. They started the rum bar stream of things. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. I didn't like the rum bar at all, but the Worthy Park is really, really good. Really good for the price. I got a bottle of, this is another one I would recommend, the Worthy Park 109. 1 second.
As an example.
Also, wait, did you say that the Ray and Nephew is now has been bought out by Appleton?
Yeah.
Appleton is not Caribbean owned anymore.
They're under the same banner of Campari.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's Italian, you said?
Yeah. But this Worthy Park 109, I really strongly recommend it.
What is it?
Worthy Park 109.
Okay.
Really,
you can get it locally?
No.
Okay.
Only in Jamaica. But can anybody guess how much this thing costs? This is 54% alcohol by volume. Let's take a wild guess how much this is.
In Canadian dollars?
US, let's say US dollars.
25.
35.
No.
$12.
40.
$12 US. $12 US. I couldn't believe it. And it's one of the best rums I've ever had.
Could you repeat
you get it at the duty free?
Yes.
109.
I strongly recommend it.
Only at the duty free coming up from Jamaica, Phil, or anywhere?
Anywhere on the island. At the duty free is 12 US.
Wow.
12 US.
Wow,
amazing. The Hampton, have you seen the duty free? Because I've never seen that rum.
It's very hard to find, and every time I go, I keep asking, and nobody can find it. And the one that's pictured here, that's over 100 US. It's expensive. They have
and they're still producing, but nobody can get their hands on it.
Is it mainly for export? They send it out like to Europe, or is mainly for export?
No, it's sold on the island. No, it's just hard to find. Yeah, it's hard.
What's the percentage of the alcohol? What's the alcohol level on that rum?
Which one?
The Worthy Park 109.
This is 54.
54%.
Yeah, and there's another one that I got 2 days ago. Hold on 1 second.
So now available the SAQ.
Phil, what's going on over there, man? You have a whole closet around?
He does. He does. He collects.
Phil collects.
Yes.
Mark, I think
I just Googled the most expensive rum, the 10 top expensive rum, and Jared's nephew is number 1.
Yeah.
It could go as much as $10,000 for a bottle.
Which one?
Real nephew. I just listed the top most expensive rum on the internet.
Real nephew is not that expensive.
Well, no, not that one. One that was
one of their brands.
All stock. Like an old stock. No, not this. I want that aged. You know, an aging one that somebody buy and have it put away. An aging one.
Wow. And
this other Worthy Park one I got a couple of days ago. Again, at the duty free, it's not available in Canada yet. It's single estate reserve. This is about 20 something US. And they're very good rums.
I can't believe all these rums Jamaica exist.
Yeah.
When I come up, I just pick up the J and Ray nephew now. Now you about Worthy Park and Amden and that kind of rum.
Yeah, well, the thing is, they started this sort of big push for rums because they're trying to push rums as a brand in Jamaica, which is why they started this the rum festival 3 years ago now or something.
So one more thing, Phil, why don't you have like a little rum tasting?
I have rum tastings all the time.
It seems like at your house, it seems like you have all the rums over there, man.
I have rum tastings all the time.
Whoa, that's an open invitation, Mark.
But you know that this at the airport in Barbados, there's only certain rums that they sell for exposure. I mean, like they don't sell it locally. You can only get it at the airport at duty free. There's certain rums, so maybe that's the same thing. Certain rums, certain rums you could get only at the airport duty free.
Or at Barbados, there's the St. Nicholas Abbey. It's only sold at the estate or very
yeah, that I know.
Yeah,
and
they don't sell
$100.
The price has gone. The prices went up. The prices went up because I paid what about 100 US for one 6 years ago, and the price for that is almost double now.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, you really to pay that price, you gotta really love rum, man.
Yeah.
You can get 10 bottles of that. I get it save fact.
Put your name on the bottle.
Yes.
No, seriously.
It all depends on who's drinking it.
They put your name on the bottle if you ask them.
Okay, right.
Yeah. And last but not least in our list of countries and rums is St. Vincent. And in St. Vincent, we have the St. Vincent Distilleries Limited, and we know about Captain Bligh, XO, and Sunset Premium rums. They're both aged and they have their own unique, smooth, palatable flavors that are all brown rum connoisseurs desire. So St. Vincent Distillers is also proud of its branded Sunset Punch that is all popular in the Caribbean. Anybody could vouch for those two rums?
No.
No, something to do, something to taste. So as we talked about all these different rums, we also know that we do a lot more with rums than just drink them or talk about putting them, using them as medicine. You know, when you have that famous headache, you throw it on, you tap your, you put it on a cloth, you tap your forehead. Yeah. I know they do that with Ray nephew.
Wait, one.
Yeah. Yes. And over the body as well, on your knee joints or any other joint. Earlier, Irene mentioned rum cake. Now, this is a dangerous question. Which island makes the best rum cake?
Jamaica. Jamaica. And I'm not Jamaican, as you know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but I know that if you have a cold or a cold coming on, you can take high wine with honey and lemon juice, and you mix it and you drink it. They say it takes away the cold and so on, and it does.
I think I feel like I'm having a cold right now.
Actually, we do the same thing with Clarkscoat White or Rivers.
Great.
With the lemon and honey. Yeah.
Yes. My nephew.
Alcohol lowers the temperature in the body, so it really is effective when you're coming down with something.
Yeah.
An elderly lady told me if I could not get my older son to sleep at night, just put a teaspoon, a drop, not a teaspoon, a drop of rum on his tongue. And I will admit that it worked.
Cynthia,
my mom would agree.
You talk about that.
I can testify to that. Yep.
Yeah, you talk about that. I heard this, and I'm not sure where I heard it. SIDS. The Chinese were giving sake, a drop of sake in the baby's milk when the baby's going to sleep.
Yeah.
They say it keeps the heart rate going. But I remember in Guyana, when a woman had a baby, they used to send you out to buy a little bottle of brandy. And they used to put that a drop at night in the milk. And we used, as kids, we said, oh, they don't want the baby to wake up at night, they're drunk in the baby. But it was, they said, it kept the heartbeat regular. I don't know if there's any validity in it, but
that I did try.
Thanks. So we have to talk about peanut soaked in rum.
Yeah.
Something to try.
Yeah, my mom did it.
And that's something to try. But also, you know, we give libations to the dead. When we open a new bottle, we offer it to somebody. Right?
What a waste.
Tell the spirits. Tell the spirits.
You know, like, can I just comment on that? I just came back from Nova Scotia, Halifax. My father, when he was buried in 1976, and I was a child, 7 years old, they put a bottle of rum between his legs. And I just never understood that until I went to Nova Scotia this past week and my getaway. It talked about I visit Africville and, you know, the Maroons who went from Jamaica to there. And it was a part of their ceremonial practice when they were burying their dead, as far as part of the communication, sending the I guess transitioning the soul from the dead to the other world. It was actually from an African tradition.
Yeah.
Wherever they got that from, and I never understood that. And they would bury, the Maroons would bury most of their dead with a bottle of rum, and I just never understood that. So, this is very strange. And for 40-something years, like, why would you give? Somebody say it's a waste, anyways. Why would you put a bottle of rum? So it was actually. I mean, some people might say obia. Some might say it's obia or voodoo. I don't know what they practice. But even that with the obia it wasn't what it's today. It's not what it was then. It was a religious practice, ceremonial practice by all the slaves that would do that. And it was just strange. I never understood why they did that with my father. But hey, man, if anybody else seen that, that's what it was.
That's it. So
my worst remedy with the Clarkscoat White was when we're playing and we get bruised and they'd use it as an antiseptic. Oh, it stung like that stung like crazy. So we'd rather run away instead of have it looked after. That used to burn.
I think somebody wanted to say something. Was it Joan?
Yes.
Yes, go
I know.
ahead.
Also, when you buy a new house, I know when I bought my house, my mom came over with the Ray and nephew and sprinkled it in all the corners of the house.
Yeah, that's they do that in Guyana.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's crazy.
Appeasing the spirits.
Yes.
It must be white rum.
Yes.
White rum.
Exactly.
And the question is why? Is it because it's overproof or?
Don't know.
I don't know.
The question.
See, now we would need Nigel's knowledge, but he's gone.
Probably an African tradition that just carried on.
It's true.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember being in Nigeria where when they would, there was a council meeting and they called the elders of the area together. And that alcohol played a very strong, so cola note, cola nut, as we have another name for it. I can't remember what it is in Jamaica. So busy, thank you. So they would eat busy and pour libations and drink alcohol. And it was supposed to be kind of a, getting wise, some kind of wise counsel was coming. I see, Phil, you're laughing, but I was like sitting there watching this and I'm thinking, okay, where does the alcohol come into play here, right?
Builds confidence.
I guess so. I guess so.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And last but not least on this list of things, and
builds confidence or reduce fear, Phil, which one?
Again?
Builds confidence or reduces the fear?
I've seen funerals here up at Codines Cemetery, where when they put the coffin down in the grave, in the hole, they pour a lot of bottles of rum was being poured on it. I don't know if that's
crazy.
It was not impressed.
Yeah.
Tasting spirits on the spirits.
Yeah, a lot of bottles right up here in Codines.
A lot of waste.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that people do with rum other than drink it and make there's a lot. But so now we talked about some of those stories here, and I'm going to call on William Critchlow. In our preparation to this event, we had a conversation and he was talking, and Liebert also talked about high wine. And William, if you could tell us the story of that.
Oh yes.
That wedding.
Liebert had the same experience, and apparently a lot of us have gone through this exercise when it comes to high wine, because a lot of people out here, when they hear the word high wine, they believe it's wine. And you have to be careful to warn people that it's not wine, because they can get carried away. I attended, years ago when I first came to this country, I attended a wedding. Actually, it was, our practice after the wedding, we have what you call the second Sunday, where we all get together at the bride's or bridegroom's place and celebrate. And it was this Guyanese guy married to a French Canadian. So her family was there, and a bottle of high wine came on the table. I did not realize what was going on until the guy took the bottle up and poured a glass full and put it in his head. And that's when I realized this guy thought he was drinking white wine.
Oh my goodness.
Out of mercy.
When he moved the bottle from his head, he could not speak. His whole face got red, and he stood there and could not do anything for a few minutes. It's only after then I realized what was happening, because we all know what high wine is, but not realizing this guy is not one of our culture, and he was not aware that he was not drinking wine. It was strong rum.
But does the color look like a wine? This is what I want to know. Is it a dark colored rum?
Right. This is high wine.
Like rare
Can you put it up there, see it? Yeah.
It's like white.
How higher?
Yeah, put it a little higher.
Yeah.
Okay. Ooh.
So it's a white.
White.
I thought it was white wine.
White, yes. But because the name wine, people got misled. This is why I think nowadays you can't import high wine anymore. They have changed the name, because in the beginning, people used to bring high wine from Guyana, through customs under the guise as wine until they got wise to the idea and realized no, that high wine is not wine. And high wine is one of the strongest alcohol you could find in Guyana. Only the elderly people would drink high wine then. And if you have a cold, you're getting a flu, you have two ways of treating your flu. One is to take a spoonful of high wine with salt and lemon. Only a spoonful, no more than that. When you consume that, you feel the heat in your body. And within minutes or hours, whatever you have is gone. Some people use honey along with the high wine to give it that sweet flavor. But in both cases, it was basically used for medicinal purposes, except for those seasoned drinkers who, when they can't get the real stuff, they will sit down and drink the high wine. But those old guys had their own technique of how to drink high wine. As Libra said earlier, you do not inhale the fumes. They would put that glass to their head and then have it followed by water. I don't know if you guys remember in those old days, people used to drink alcohol in little, what we call snap glasses. You drink it straight, and then you pour the water afterwards and drink it. And that's how those old folks used to consume the alcohol.
Okay.
And there were times when the real high wine, when I was growing up, the real high wine, when you pour it out in a glass and leave it there, and you hold the glass, you can feel the warmth. And people would drink that thing.
And you couldn't scratch a match near to it.
That's right, that too.
What?
You couldn't scratch a match over it. It would just ignite.
Yes.
Wow.
Thank you.
That's how good it was.
Yeah. And only available in Guyana, right? Unless private import, like with what Sharon said from Grenada.
But you know, I have to mention also that as we are talking on all the different rums from all the different islands, and it was mentioned that Guyana somehow was able to use the knowledge of the other Caribbean islands to perfect their way of producing the rum. If you were to go back and look at one of the rums that was displayed, Kill Devil. Kill Devil is available in all of the islands, Barbados, Jamaica, Trinidad, Guyana, all in different strengths, of different ages. In the Barbados, you have the same Kill Devil in 21 years old and the 15-year-old. The only thing is the Guyana formula somehow has a way of mellowing the taste. And I think that's the advantage I find when I drink comparing other rums. People can be fooled easily with the Guyana rum because it goes down mild, smooth. And that's why some people get fooled, because when they drink the rum, they think, they can drink a lot of it. And they will keep going and having fun. And as soon as they leave the environment and go out in the breeze, that's when they get hit. And there's one thing you gotta be careful with Guyana rum. It's very mild and very smooth, but it has that after kick. I used to drink when I first came the other VAT 19 from Trinidad. I never liked it, but at one point that was what a lot of us used to drink. But when you compare the different rums. If you were to compare the same Ray and Nephew with our high wine is a milder taste now than before. And you can be tempted to drink a lot of it. But be careful, because when you finish and that breeze hits you, that's when you pass out. And that's the trick about Guyana rum. I'm sure Phil might have some experience with that too.
Sorry, some experience with what? With what? Which part?
Our Guyana rum, like, you know, the taste when you compare the Guyana rum taste with the other islands. There's a smooth taste in Guyana rum.
Depends on the rum, because Jamaica, I don't have a lot of rums from Trinidad and Tobago, but the Jamaica, the Appleton, there's an Appleton 15 and Appleton 21, really smooth, man. Really smooth. Not as sweet as the Eldorado 12, but the Appleton Estate 21, it's a little pricey, but it's so smooth. So smooth. The 15 you can try. It's not available at the SAQ, I don't think. I had to get mine in at the LCBO, but that one's really smooth as well.
Yeah. Nice. Thank you. Are there any other stories?
Before we go on here.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
You know, we were talking about rums before, and I remember growing up, Guyana. I think Leeward mentioned this earlier. Every estate had its own brand of rum. And I don't know where the names came from, because when I was looking at the Guyana's name, like high wine is not wine, but it's rum. We had a rum in Ghana years ago called Russian Bay rum.
Yeah.
And you know, people when they hear the name Russian beer will think it's beer, but it's rum. And these estates have different names, like Russian Bay rum. They had Buccaneer, they had Tarzan, and for some reason these rum live up to their reputation. Because when you drink the Tarzan rum, you want to fight. I mean, you want to climb trees. You drink the Buccaneer rum, you want to go and fight. And this happened, literally happened in Guyana parties. Depending on what rum you drink, your behavior will change.
Mr. Critchlow, you said that the high wine had a name change. Could you tell us what?
Yes. I noticed now it's labeled strong rum.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Because nowadays, if you go in New York, you will not see, you might just see the high wine label, but most of them is now labeled strong rum.
Thank you.
It's the same content, high wine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any other stories?
Yes, I don't know if I should tell this one because
Yes,
I
please
have
do.
actually seen it. We all know that some people don't drink rum for religious purposes, but in Barbados, there are some people, and I'm sure other islands, who will fool their family and congregation that they do not drink rum. But I have seen people brought what we call salt bread, their buns, and they scoop out the inside and poured rum into it and consumed it in the presence of other people who were having their rum in the glass. It was salt bread.
Oh, why not? You know? Why not?
Do you know about that, Cynthia?
No, I don't know.
Okay, I didn't know if you'd heard.
But it's a great idea.
I have a remedy that well, I don't know if it's a remedy, but it's believe cures. But in Jamaica, they used to mix and if Pat was here, she would remember that as well. When we were growing up, they would mix the Ray and Nephew white rum with ganja and some spices in a bottle, put it aside for a few weeks or a few months, I can't remember. And then you know, things would become, the rum or whatever is inside would become really, really
I have
thick.
to unmute myself.
And you just pour that out, you know, if somebody was to be sick or something like that, you just get a teaspoon or two of that and it's supposed to make it feel better. But yeah, white rum with ganja and a couple of, and some pimento spices and what. I don't ask me to read the recipe. I just remember what I saw was put inside the thing. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
I
have a story, something that I heard a long time ago about rum. You know, in the days when rum was exported in barrels, there was this couple who came down from England. And it happened while they were in Jamaica, the man died. And the wife wanted him to be brought back to England, but it was very expensive for the body to be shipped back. So what, I don't know if it's only her or collaborate with someone to put the body in a barrel that had rum. And it was shipped back, but somehow the barrel got side shifted, I would say. It went somewhere else in England, and it was in a warehouse. It was there for many years. Until the barrel started, little rum started leaking from the barrel. So there were these two men who were workers, they knew it was rum in the barrel. So, and they were having a ball with this rum. And for them, it tasted so good. They couldn't understand why the rum tastes so good. So to make a long story short, they were always drinking this rum. And it so happened the barrel got emptied, but it still had a little bit of weight in there. They couldn't understand. When they finally opened the barrel, it was the dead body in the barrel.
Cured.
And he was cured because the rum got cured. They were beside, first what I heard, they were beside themselves. All this time they were drinking this rum and not realizing there was fun.
But they must get sick after that, no?
But that's the story I heard. And the poor woman lost her husband, and I don't know what happened after. I didn't get the rest of the story, or they didn't know the rest of the story, what happened.
That's crazy.
Yes, thank you. Hepta.
Yes, I before I forget, I must share my rum story because as an adult, I had a bittersweet relationship with church because my parents had a rum shop. And of course, they were excommunicated from the church because they were selling rum. And so that made me angry for quite a while because it was their livelihood.
What religion was that? What denomination?
They were Baptist, Church of God. Sorry, Church of God.
Okay.
I remember as a child, I remember my dad used to give me a little rum and water. He said it's always good to have a little rum and water. So
good for the worms, they say.
Yes.
Good for the
and
worms.
Up till today, I still have my little rum and water.
For the worms?
No, not for the worms. Not for the worms this time.
So to end my rum story that I don't want to forget, as a child growing up, my parents would send me to church. They had 5 kids. They would send us to church, but they would never go to church. with us.
Wow.
And that was the reason.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I've seen that many times in Barbados. The children went to church and the parents were home or wherever else they wanted to go.
They later went to separate churches, actually.
Okay.
Wow. Bill, do you want to say something?
Yes. Has anybody ever heard of a Newfoundland screech?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
And does everybody know what Jamaica's national dish is?
What's it
Technically,
called?
we don't have ackee and saltfish, but people believe it to be ackee and saltfish.
You believe ackee and saltfish?
High Commissioner.
Say that again, sorry?
The High Commissioner indicated we do not have a national dish. I'm like, what?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, it's weird. We all think that it does, but
I'm gonna have
I thought it was ackee and saltfish.
yeah, so did every other Jamaican, but we don't
So
necessarily.
it has something to do with codfish and the screech, right?
That's right. So the codfish or saltfish that is, according to a lot of us, is Jamaica's national dish. That fish actually comes from Newfoundland.
Yeah.
Right.
Rum, the screech, comes from Jamaica.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard that. Yeah.
Wow.
But Newfoundland is one of the oldest trading partner for Guyana. They bought molasses from Guyana. Well, Guyana had so much molasses. It was funny.
Incredible.
Any other stories?
Do you know that the rum Golden Devil, which is out of Guyana, one of Guyana's top rum, is actually a mixture of Jamaican rum and Guyana rum?
Really?
Quite possible.
Yes.
Because DDL is now buying raw liquor from the Caribbean. It's a good market for them. They guarantee market. You know?
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing your stories.
Yeah.
Some, as they say, Ripley's Believe It or Not, and some local tale. So this brings us to, I want to say thank you to everyone. This brings us to the end of our event. But for those individuals on the call who don't already know and may want to contact our presidents in the coalition, maybe they have ideas about things the coalition can be doing. You'll see the email, the name, the association, and the email address here. Rum always serves at 9-night. Yes, 9-night functions. Exactly. Definitely. Another use of rum. Important. So contact the presidents and share your ideas and your thoughts about what the coalition is doing, what you'd like to see, or just if you want to contact the individual, their contact is here. And I want to say on behalf of my co-hosts and committee members and the coalition on a whole, thank you for being here and being a part of it and listening and sharing. We really appreciate your time.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sharon, I just wanted to say, sorry if I interrupted someone, but
no problem.
Hands up for the rum shops, because it was a place to meet, for men to meet and talk. And yes.
That's it.
My parents had a rum shop also.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's when we were very little. I didn't know much about it, but I remember seeing the old cast and so on. They moved from a rum shop to a regular shop.
And they still sold rum, I'm sure.
And you know, in Jamaica once, I think over many years, held a record of having the most rum shops and churches next to one another. So the men
I think Barbados might have something to say about that.
Really?
I just came back.
Yeah.
I just came back from Barbados this week.
Yeah.
And we went on a bus tour and the rum tour.
Whoa,
Sorry, Mark.
yeah.
Sorry, Mark, but and beside every church there was a rum bar.
Really?
Yes.
Yes.
Wow.
Holy Spirit.
Yes, that's right.
Close.
That's right.
That's the noise rum boy. I tell you.
It makes you wonder, do I go to the church first or do I go to the bar first? Then I don't have to listen to the minister if I take the time off to the bar.
Our tour guide told us that the female went to church and the men went to the bar. So everyone was in spirit. Everyone.
Yes. Gospel.
And it
I
still
think
happens.
either way they get some spirits.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
You know, one observation. I used to hear in Guyana that drinking was our subculture because everybody drinks. What I have not found when I came out here, that you have addicts. And I don't think I've ever experienced in Guyana people addicted to drinking. I had friends who loved the drink, but they would never drink alone. They would wait until they meet somebody, say, let's go and have a drink. But they never go into a rum shop and buy a drink by themselves and sit down and drink.
Mr. Critchlow, let me add a little bit to that, because what I grew to realize, it was not the drinking, it was the company.
Yes.
There are certain guys that will always go to a rum shop, but it would always be 3, 4 of them. And if you sit nearby, they do more talking than drinking. And in Guyana, there's so much alcohol that being drunk. If I know 2 drunks, I know a lot.
Exactly.
I don't see people staggering and lying down on the ground and that. We don't have that. But you drink all the time. And I remember when I joined the civil service, the first time I heard about it, we went for liquid lunch. You went out, you had a drink, and you went back to work. But what was the drink? Maybe a half a bottle between 5 guys. Not very much, you know. It was a conversation, not the drinking. So that's why you wouldn't find one guy walking and say, oh, give me a bottle of rum or what. No, that would never happen. And sit down and drink all by yourself, no.
So Sharon, Cynthia, thank you so much. I think we're all ready for part 2, the tasting, and we're going to go to Phil's house.
Yes.
To Phil's house we go.
Please remember me.
What's your address?
I mean, now we're for next year. I call up to them for this fight.
Okay.
Now we're for next year Emancipation Weekend. Hell no.
Or Phil will be our connoisseur when we do that wine tasting.
Yeah.
Oh, it feels like, what?
But I also want to take the time to thank Sharon and Cynthia and the group. Put on another, I think another fantastic coalition event. And it's the second one we're doing in a year. Both, you know, the content is just amazing. And really and truly, it's we continue to get better. And looking forward to the next year as we continue to work together as a group, as an organization, as a diaspora, and hopefully we'll leave our mark for the next group, and even the dog too. It will leave our mark for the next generations to come. So, congrats on you guys for taking the time, putting in the hours to put this together.
Yeah,
and present it.
Sharon is definitely had put a lot of work into this. She spearheaded this, so thank you so much, Sharon, for all your help.
Thank you. Pleasure. Thank you.
Good work.
It's really informative, Sharon. Really, really.
Thank you.
Keep it up.
I didn't think there would be so much information around rum.
Thank you so much, and thank you to you all for.
Well, I must say it was inspiring. I now have a different appreciation for my drinking, knowing its history. I know now when I take a drink, you know what goes into that bottle, getting where it is.
Absolutely.
Sharon, you'll send out the presentation, so it'd be good referral references, especially when we're traveling.
Yes.
To go back to those presentations while we're there, just to remember the names of those rums. So
Absolutely, absolutely.
When the presentation goes out to everybody on the call.
Fantastic, will do. All right.
Super. Great afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you all. Have a
Good night,
great
guys. Take care.
afternoon.
Thank you.
Bless.
Take care.
Good job, guys. Bye.
Thank you. Take care. Thanks.